So the services at DVC, kind of to follow that up and eventually answer all the questions in the chat, are primarily online. So there is no in-office office hours. There is no in-office tutoring. And the vast majority of counseling, admissions, and other types of services will be online. So there is no ability to make an appointment to see any of the instructors personally. And again, that's mostly for safety reasons. Although there are some science classes that are what they call hybrid, that are meeting on campus for exams or a little bit of laboratory stuff. So the bookstore is the same way, although in the summer they allowed you to come and pick up your purchase. But if you go to the bookstore site, right, it's the one that says the custom version, and it says Hoffman BioSci 140L, which doesn't even exist. And it's, a little less than $93. It's like $92.61 or something. But in terms of the lab book, the supplement, you need to go to the bookstore and get it from there. And just to kind of show you a couple things. So I'm going to share this screen with you, and you all should be able to look at this. So you should be able to see this. So here's our website, right? And you come over here and you look at library and bookstore. So this is the first page of the website, library and bookstore. Click on that. Go to the Pleasant Hill Book Center. That's us. Go to textbooks, upper left. Buy textbooks. And then here they have these pull-down menus, which is kind of nice. So campus is Diablo Valley College, right? Technically the Pleasant Hill campus, to be honest, as opposed to the San Ramon campus, right? Then you go and you find biological science, so BioSci. In BioSci, I'll list all the courses. So for us, we're 140. And then the section, any of the sections that I teach, but they're all going to be exactly the same information. So I'll just click 2257 and I'll add to course list. And then I'll click on get my books. And here's what the books have. Now, you should be able to see this. If you look the custom, I'll highlight it, Human Physiology Lab, BioSci 140, Professor James Hoffman. I didn't write this, I just ordered it. And it's a custom version of the Fox book. All right. And that Fox book, just to kind of go here. So if you go to Amazon, I'm just going to type Fox Laboratory. So here's the Fox Laboratory guide. The newer one, right, it's hard to find, but this is an old one, right? This is 2007 edition, so it's what, 13 years old. It's $170, right? So our book is a custom version, and what they've done is they've taken out the information we don't use, which is actually very little, and they put it on normal paper, which I actually like better. So you need to order this and get it. During the summer, they were allowing you to pick things up, although now I'm not sure what they're doing. You also need these two things. If you want hard copies of this, you can email me and I'll email the bookstore and ask them to get some hard copies on the shelf. They print them in-house, so they'll be printed on campus. And they could probably get them printed in a day or two. So if you want a hard copy, email me and I'll make sure they have a couple. So it's like less than 25 bucks, but you can also download this on Canvas itself. All right. And the OpenStax book is the same way. They haven't purchased any because it's a special order, right? And if you look again on Amazon, All right, so I'm going to type in OpenStax Anatomy Physiology textbook. All right, click on that. Here it is. And there's a couple things you can do with the OpenStax book. All right, as an e-textbook, which would be delivered as a Kindle, it's free. All right, so if you have a Kindle app, and you can get one, and pretty much any device will show Kindle stuff, you can download it for free. All right, if you want a hardcover, right, you can click on that and you can get it for 50 bucks. And if you want a paperback, right, you can get it for 40 bucks. All right, $41. Or if you want to download it, you can download it from OpenStax, or if you go to modules, and your modules are going to look a little different than mine. There is a module that says PDF of course textbooks, and you can literally just download. So click on the OpenStax book, and you can download the PDF version for free. Okay, just a couple notes. If you click on left click the little arrow down, you can preview it, download it, or if there's alternative formats, it'll show you that. You'd probably want to download it, right? I'm not going to preview it because it's 1,500 pages and it would take forever to preview because it would have to load in the screen. But you know, it's there and available for you. Since we're there, I'll go. We'll stay in. I'll show you this way. We'll stay in the same module. So you scroll down, and you can also do the same thing with the lab supplement, right? So you can order the lab supplement, and I need to know because they don't want to print copies if they're not going to sell them from the bookstore, or you can do the same thing for the lab supplement because I made it. You can download that. So basically, the only book you have to go and get from the bookstore is this one right here. And again, it's a lot cheaper than it would otherwise be, because if you ordered it from the publisher, probably be 200, and last time I looked, $230. So 92 is a great deal. And during the summer courses, they allowed students to pick up their books in person, but you had to make an appointment. All right. So does that make sense in terms of the bookstore? All right. So yeah, she told me she was going to have some available. So I don't know why that is. And you know, the 13th edition from Amazon, that is talking about the lab book, I hope. And be careful if you order from Amazon, make sure you get the lab book and not the actual textbook, because they'll look exactly the same. So you can download them for free if you want the PDFs. If you like hard copies, you can get those of all of those things. You cannot get a free version of the Fox because I don't own it, and it's not in what they call open source for that. So any other questions about the textbooks? Anything about those? All right, so the lab reports will work very, very simply. We'll kind of go there in a second, unless we got additional questions about books. All right, so I'm going to go back.
Hi, can I just say one thing real quick? Hi, my name is Amanda.
Hey, Amanda.
If you guys haven't seen in the group chat already, I wanted to make a study group with as many of us as possible to stay connected. So my phone number is in the group chat. You can text me if you want, and I'll make like a big group chat of us for like a, we can do Zoom things on our own and do some study sessions. But I've done it in like my other science classes, like my anatomy and chemistry classes, and it really helps. So I'm just putting that out there. Thank you.
I'm Nina, and I can vouch for Amanda's study group. It helped a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Nina. So looking at the lab report stuff, let me share again. So here's my modules. And again, yours will look a little different. But if you scroll down, just kind of show you how the modules are made up in general. So the first one is course orientation information. There's a quiz you got to take, okay, the first day. So if you haven't taken it, make sure you take it before today ends. That's going to keep your place in the course. You can access it a number of different ways. You can just click on this, and then yours will be a little different, but you would hit start instead of preview. It's 5 simple questions, and it sort of tries to ask questions that you would see on the class in any situation. Not almost, most of the type of questions I ask will be on there. There's a question about an image, there's a question about things like that. So as a reminder, if you are looking and participating in this right now and you are not on Google Chrome, you're going to have potentially some issues with images. And so the only thing that will for sure work with images is Google Chrome. Firefox works okay usually, but the big one that students have issue with are when they use the Safari on some sort of iOS Mac type machine. And in some cases, not all, but in some cases, it doesn't show the image. And obviously, if there's a question about, hey, tell me about this image, and you can't see it, you're not going to do very well on it. So make sure you use Google Chrome. I hate to force people into a particular web browser, but it's the way Canvas is sort of designed. So there's that. The other things in this first module, there's a scavenger hunt checkup. It's an online quiz. There's a take-home checkup. That's an online quiz. There's an anticipating questions. That's an online quiz. And there's a meet and greet and discussion about improving online performance in classes, and you should participate in that. Then there's a whole course orientation that tells you a whole bunch of things about me and the syllabus and how to navigate, and some icons and some resources. And then there's lecture exam 1 module, laboratory quiz 1 module, and then the stuff about lab reports, okay? So when we're gonna look at lab reports, one of the things that students have trouble with is they've never written, not everyone, but many of the students have never written a laboratory report in a format that would be an acceptable scientific format. Yeah, you've written stuff at the end of lab, and anatomy, your anatomy book probably had stuff in there. Your chemistry book, you probably have to answer questions in lab at the end. But this is like a journal article lab report. So we have a series of these 5 little assignments, and some of them aren't little, especially the first 2, where you're going to answer questions and do some exercises that's going to help you figure out some of the elements of the lab report. And then eventually that's going to culminate in the actual final lab report, okay? And so, you can look at the dates and everything when these are due. If I remember right, the lab report is due like beginning of October, I think. And the JLRs are due next week and the week after. So 1 and 2 are due next week, and 3, 4, 5 are due the week after. So we go pretty quick on this stuff from there. In terms of the the laboratory themselves, what we have for the laboratory and doing it is obviously, you know, when I can, I'll ask you to do some things at home that I'm sure you have. As an example, in the first lab, I asked you to take a pulse. I'm sure you have a pulse, otherwise you wouldn't be doing this, right? But for the most part, we're not going to be doing the experiments, right? So what are you going to do? Well, we're going to show you what you would have done. We're going to show you what type of results you're going to expect. There are sample results in the lab supplement that you would use for your data when you're looking at writing up an experiment or using data for analysis purposes. So in the lab supplement, there is data that is found there. So you can use that. And, you know, for the homeostasis one, right? So that you're supposed to do both of these this week. If you look, right, these are some lecture notes that written by a student. Here are some slides. I put them in PowerPoint or PDF, depending on what your preference is, okay? And then these slides, I went over voiceover videos. And so there's an overview. It looks at data and how we do it. That's the first one. And in this one, usually we don't end up with this many. There's a discussion in homeostasis one that'll show you kind of the data and what to expect and what we got and how to interpret it and why we care. And then there's also one for the acid-base portion, right? And I try to, if I remember, put down the length of time. So we're not going to have typically, this is what, almost 2 hours worth of videos for one lab. Remember, if we were, you know, meeting in class this week, we would have lecture today for an hour and a half, and then today or tomorrow, depending on what section you're in, we would have a 3-hour lab as well. So this is meant to take the place of labs. So you should look at all of these sources, the text-based lecture notes, the slides, and then the slides will be shown in the videos, and watch the videos. There are things that are in some of these that aren't in others, and you're responsible for anything contained within the notes, the slides, or the videos for that matter. So that's kind of how the labs are going to work. Lectures, since we're talking about it, might as well look at them. So for the lecture, it's going to be the same thing, right? There's an overview you should look at that kind of tells you how to look at things and go through stuff. But then this is, I tried to organize it by week. So this is the first week, right? First week lecture. Here are the things you're responsible for. So I coded lecture as S1P1. S stands for section. Section 1 is anything in lecture exam 1. So everything for lecture exam is going to have an S1 category for the first lecture exam. Obviously for the second lecture exam, it's going to have an S2 category and so on. And then the P is part, right? So the first part of the first section, right? Not surprisingly, is the first day lecture. You can click on that page, and it's going to be the similar setup. There are text-based lecture notes, right? And again, just like we had before, you can left-click the arrow, right? And then you can preview them or download them or have alternative formats. So let's just go ahead and preview this set. This is like 4 or 5 pages probably, only 3. Oh, it's the first day one, it's only 3. And now you can go through and look and say, okay, these are the things that I would talk about in class. These are the things that I would use for notes in class as well. So these are the lecture notes. You probably want to download those, right? If you want to download them, right, you again just left click on the arrow and hit download, or you can double click on the and depending on how you have your mouse set up, it might even be single click on the blue words. Blue words are live links, and it'll just automatically download onto your computer. We have the PowerPoints, and again, PDF for lecture slides for the first day. And then these are the lecture video, right? So you can just watch these. These are stored on YouTube. And so if you push start, right, you go, well, I don't want to watch it in small. you can double click it and get to YouTube itself and watch it. And you still have the setting controls like you do in YouTube. So if you want to speed it up or slow it down or pause it or whatever, you can. You can make it full screen with this little box thing I'm sure you know about. So for the videos, you should watch them because there's stuff I talk about in the videos, and basically they're supposed to serve as your lectures for class. When available, I will have handouts here at the bottom. All right, and so as an example, we're going to learn the organ systems probably a little differently than you learned in anatomy. There's a bunch of reasons for that, but the main one is that anatomy is the study of structure, so you're looking at structural systems, while in physiology we're looking at functional systems. So as an example, another one that I'll just preview. So here's a handout that I made on the 10 human organ systems that you're going to be responsible for understanding in class. So when appropriate, I will have handouts or links to videos or things like that. I am not a huge proponent of linking to other sources of videos, mostly because they might use terminology that's different than ours, or they might go into a different detail than we do. It'd be very difficult for you to actually find a video on the 10 human organ systems as described here and in the lecture notes, in the videos and the lecture slides. But there are other sources, and to be honest, right, if you want to go and look for other stuff, I've listed a couple places here that, and this is on, so this is in the first module overview. So it's in lecture section 1, but it's an overview. It tells you how to do things, understand things. But here are some of the ones that students find useful, and you can do a search yourself. But handwritten tutorials, the Amoeba Sisters, Mr. Ford's class, the Khan Academy, Crash Course in Anatomy Physiology, and Doodles in the Membrane, which deals with chemistry and biochemistry stuff. So when we get to metabolism as an example, a lot of students find that the person that does this does a really good job. So all of these may help, but they're not going to be exactly the course material that we want, potentially. So I think sometimes you watch a video for 11 minutes and you get like 2 minutes of stuff on it, and sometimes there's 3 minutes of it that's confusing to you. So, but those are places that I haven't outlined specific videos, but if you want to know about levels of organization, the Amoeba Sisters I'm sure have one on it and things like that. I also have a section on how to study and take lecture notes in physiology. When you watch the videos, you should take notes so you don't have to go back and rewatch them. And then in a perfect world, you would combine those with the notes that you already have posted in those text-based notes, and then you have one set of really good notes. What I've done in previous semesters, I've asked students for advice, and I've asked them a couple questions, but the main question was, well, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself the first day of class before all this started, what would you tell yourself? And so, there's advice there. So read it and take it from students that have been through the process and maybe not make some of the same mistakes that they made. So you can read that. I think this video is very useful. This is a medical student who is in is actually in med school at this point in time, and they're going to talk about how she studied her notes and some of the things she did, and I think it's a really interesting video. It's one of the few videos I'll recommend. It's less than 6 minutes, and you might want to do that as well. So that's kind of how the lecture modules are going to be, and I think most of you know on Canvas there are a couple ways to navigate. One is just from within a module. If you want to go to the next module, just go to the bottom and hit next, and that brings you to the next module. So once you're done with the first day lecture, and let's say you're still going to work, you hit next, and not surprisingly, the second lecture will come up. That's S1P2 Part 2, right? And it has the exact same format. All right, this time we have 2 videos instead of 1, and you just keep on going through the material like that. Just why I'm here, and I'll kind of show you while I'm here a little different thing. Notice, and you only see this twice, S1, PX1. This X means I'm not going to talk about it. Basic cell structure, you should know. It's part of anatomy and probably other experiences you had. We're not going to lecture on it. We're not going to post a lecture video, but this is the information that I want you to know. And especially, we'll preview this so I can just give you an idea. Especially the description here and this table. And this table kind of summarizes the important components of the different cellular components, and not just the organelles, but it probably organizes them a little differently than you did in your previous experiences. So this will talk about membranous and non-membranous organelles and where they're located and what their basic function is. Yeah, you know what? The endoplasmic reticulum does a lot of things, but I really want you to know just one or two things about it, the most important things in terms of what's important for us. So that's a good thing that you really have to know, study on your own, right? And it even says there's no lecture video for this. In class, we wouldn't talk about it except just to tell you that. And there's also the second one is the basic chemistry lecture, right? Remember, chemistry is a prerequisite for this class. And it goes over some of the basic things in lecture that I would expect you to know from chemistry. You know, things like you hopefully forgot and purposely, like molarity, that we're going to have to revisit and things like that. So that is there. I can't see the chat when I'm doing this, so if there's questions, I'll get to them. Also, the other way to kind of do this is to navigate to the home. And I think I have this set up so you should come in home page first, right? So this tells you about stuff. Here's an orientation quiz again. It must be completed, right? So how do you get to it? I showed you one way, I'll show you another. Here's a brief little video. It's like a couple minutes long. Here's course information that would be in the syllabus as well, right? Here's my office hours. All right, and again, these are either online or Zoom. And then here's some course links. So if you wanted to take the course orientation quiz, you could click on this link, course syllabus here. Here's the OpenStax PDF or laboratory supplement that you could download. Here's that section we just looked at on how to complete lecture modules. So if you click on that, and I've programmed everything right, we just pop up to that page we had before. The problem is that's not going to take you everywhere in Canvas. So you should get used to navigating through the modules. As a matter of fact, I have my Canvas set up so I go directly to modules, and then it's easier to find things for it. So that's kind of how Canvas is set up and things like that. So for the JLRs, they're pretty simple. And I'll answer the question about organization. It's pretty simply organized, to be honest. And for the JLR, right? So we'll share screen again. So I'm going to scroll down here to the JLR section, right? And click on JLR 1, right? And then there are explanations of how to do it. Okay, so there's a PowerPoint and PDF slide. There's general slides for the whole thing, but there's just for JLR 1. So as an example, if you wanted, okay, I want let's do the PDF because it'll download faster. I want to preview the PDF file. So I click preview. And this is a PDF of PowerPoint slides that tell you what to do in terms of part 1 and what you're responsible for, okay? So pretty simple. If we actually look at the JLR 1, we can download it here, but I'll preview it. And you would just go through this and follow the instructions, okay? And then eventually you'll submit it. So this tells you got to read it, the background, right? Here's an example. For the first one is diagramming methods of an experiment. So you can do that. So here's the assignment. So you can draw here, or you can draw on a separate piece of paper if you want. And then here's looking at the overall laboratory report and the elements that would be important in it, right? Then it asks you to select a laboratory report here that you're going to write up, and then it asks you questions about it. The questions would be answered from the information here. Or sometimes I think that you're going to have to think about it a little bit and take your best guess. Then it's going to ask you to do something called translation. Here's an introduction from a scientific paper that's sort of difficult to read, picked on purpose for its level of difficulty. And you're supposed to summarize it here with just a couple sentences. And then based on that, you're going to pick some what they call seed terms. It's going to explain here. And you're going to do a concept map. Here shows an example of a concept map for water. So you're going to map that out. I gave you some seed terms to start. You're going to pick some other ones from that introduction up here and do that. And then here's the checklist. And when you upload your assignment, you will make it into a PDF image and upload it. All right, so we'll go ahead and do that. So that's basically, and yours looks slightly different, but that's basically how you do the JLRs. And each one will, again, be the similar format, and you will be asked to submit those as PDFs. As a matter of fact, going back to the beginning module, this take-home quiz, all right, you're going to have to submit it by PDF. As a matter of fact, most of your exams, you're going to have a PDF portion you're going to have to write by hand and submit in a limited amount of time. And so this goes through different apps in different ways. You don't need a scanner. You could do it if you had a scanner at home, but most of us don't. So you can use different apps for your phone or tablets to scan things into PDF. If you have problems with that, let me know. But we're going to do kind of a low stakes assignment first to figure out, make sure we know how to do it, so that when you have an exam question, set of questions that say, hey, as soon as you open the exam, you got 30 minutes to write them out and upload them back to Canvas, then you know how to do it. So we'll look at that for the modules. All right. So that's how you do it. In terms of the schedule, not the schedule, the schedule, this is actually, I did this because I knew that question would be asked. Go to announcements, and if you haven't gone to announcements yet, at some point in time, you should today and look at all the announcements. I'm just going to go through them really quick. When you look at them, this is the announcement, but it's not really the announcement. It's just the first line. So you have to click on the announcement to see it. Okay, and I know not all of you are going to be, nursing students, but Samuel Merritt has this nice nursing success seminar, and they just announced that they're accepting applications for it. And I think that gives you a leg up, right? So if you're thinking about going to nursing, then you should at least look at this and decide whether or not that's for you. Even if you're not going to Samuel Merritt, it's probably worthwhile in terms of looking at. I sent this out to everybody enrolled. This has the student aid information on it. So there's an emergency grant for COVID-19. I would ask you, if you haven't applied yet for it, I would ask why not. It's very similar to a scholarship, and it's a fairly easy application. And I have a hard time believing any of you are not adversely affected by the switch to online. And even if your hours were cut at work and 2 hours a week, or some of you are work in restaurants or other places that are closed, or limited work, I think that it's a fairly easy application, and it's like applying for a scholarship, but it's just a grant. A grant means that they just give you the money. There's a lot of things that can be spent on things you would normally buy, like school stuff or food. There's other things as well, like daycare if you're a parent. Certainly you've already expended or will expend that money, so you probably should apply. There's also, if you don't have some of these technology things, if you don't have a computer, then you can get Chromebooks on loan from school, and you need to fill out that request form. Before we'll come back to the what do I do, where do I start, what am I supposed to do stuff. If you're DSS students, then email me your accommodations, right? If you haven't, and to be honest, nobody has. So, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you don't apply, so don't worry about it. Here's a little thing on how to get Microsoft. We have the ability to get free Microsoft Office if you don't have it on your computer as a DVC student, and you have access to it as long as you have an DVC email account. As far as I know, they never purged those, so theoretically, as long as DVC was in existence, you would be able to have that. Here's the welcome physiology stuff. But I want to come back to this. Where do I start? What am I supposed to do? So I click on that. Click on that. How come it's not opening? It's just slow. This has a document that asks you, where do I start? What do I do? And kind of goes through the type of things that you should do. And so this one is just a download if you click it, right? It just automatically downloads to your computer. But what I did is I made myself a cheat sheet, and as somebody noted, it's on the back of the 140 syllabus. Okay, it's the very last page. But I thought it was so important, I made a separate page of it. Let me get it up. So let's see if I can share it. That's not the one I want. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. It takes a while sometimes for the computer to find it. So I called this the most important course calendar in our class. I sent it as an attachment to everybody. And basically, it sorts all the assignments by date, like what was asked, okay? Now, let me explain the dates why we're here. And I hesitated putting the last two columns on this one, all right? You will be the safest. You will be the most productive. You will probably do best in the class if you work with what are called the due dates. The due dates are the day I would expect it to be due if we're in a face-to-face situation, turning stuff in, okay? So as an example, we would have a quiz today if we were in class, okay? And so the due date is 8/24, all right? And for the orientation checkup, for that scavenger hunt checkup, the due date is 8/26, okay? These are the times you should turn those things in. However, I understand that our lives are very different now than they were a year ago, right? And that some of you have really few responsibilities because you don't have much work at your job because maybe you were in a service industry that is not doing much right now, or things like that. Maybe you have kids. Maybe you work in a hospital setting, you're working twice as much as you used to because there's just such a need. Whatever it is, I understand our lives are weird. So what I've done when possible is I've extended that date if I could. So as an example, the scavenger hunt checkup, you should finish it by August 26th. So it should be done by Wednesday. Okay, that's the goal of it. But you can turn it in up until August 30th without any penalty. Okay, so you have kind of this grace period. If it comes past August 30th, you say, oh, James, I forgot to turn it in. I'm going to say, well, what'd you do for the 4 days you had, right? So you'll get a little sympathy from me there. In addition, because I know sometimes things fall through the cracks. When possible, I also have added an expiration date, okay? So the penalty date is when you start accruing penalties for turning in late, and the expiration date is, hey, this is the last day you can turn it in, all right? The penalty is pretty severe, and I'm trying to not have you do this, but if you need it, it's there. It's 0.5% per hour, right? So if it's 3 hours late, you'll lose 1.5% of your score. Canvas is programmed to do that automatically. You know, if it's 3 days late, you're going to lose, you know, a half a times 72, right? So you're going to lose, you know, 36% in terms of that. And at some point in time, it just doesn't do you any good to do that assignment, because the assignment is meant to build skills or to help with, you know, other things, understanding of concepts. And so they have, you know, particular days where after that, it's just, you can't turn it in for credit. So I've arranged it by the due date. Notice that some things don't have a penalty date, right? So as an example, your orientation checkup, you need to do it once today, okay? And if you look at it, sorry, online, there's 2 attempts for it. So you get to do 2 attempts. The highest attempt counts. And they're really pretty easy questions that if you've thumbed through the syllabus and a few other things, you should be able to answer. But, you know, one is, you know, are you using the right web browser so you can see the image on the screen so that you can answer the question, okay? So it's only 5 questions. Each one's worth a checkup point. And you want to finish it once today just to tell me, hey, I'm engaged in the course. I'm going to be here. I'm interested in taking it. I'm going to stay in, right? The second time, you have up until the 30th to take, and the best score counts. So for some reason, let's say you get a 3 out of 5 in the first one. You go, oh, I really want those points. And as long as you take it a second time before the 30th, then, you know, and you get a 5 out of 5, which I would expect most, if not all of you, would get 5 out of 5 on that. You know, then your score counts. If you get 5 out of 5 the first time, there's no reason to take it a second time unless you want to go back and look at it for some reason, right? So best score always counts. So anything that's called a checkup, right, goes into the checkup points. And then other things that don't have a checkup go into normal class points. So you can look, and here's where the JLRs are due, right? I'll give you an extra couple days to upload them, and then after 9/11, you can't get credit for them anymore. And so you can go through and look at this. And I think I've included, you know, I'll be honest, I may have screwed up one, but I don't think so. And we may need to change things as stuff happens. As an example, if we were, you know, really meeting face to face this semester, like we have, you know, for the most part in the past, then they would have canceled school today because of the smoke anyway, which is just crazy. So, you know, the things to think about, you know, would be, this is the most important one. And so you want to, you know, and I put the due date in green so that's the date that you should have. And then orange is like, well, we really don't want to do orange. And then red is, hey, those want to expire, right? So, you know, try to live by the due dates, and your life will be a lot easier, a lot less stressful. So I think this is everything for the semester. So I will post this as well. I sent it to an email to everybody who's enrolled, so you should have it. But I'll post this as well in the announcements so that you can grab it if you want to. All right. All right. Any other questions? I think we got them all on the chat. All right. So any other questions? Chat on chat, chime in vocally if you want. Anybody else? Questions about how points work?
One last thing, before we wrap up, I just want to say, if you're not following in our little chat, Nina made a Discord link, and then just join into that, and then you can be part of our big study group. So it's in the chat. Look for it. It's a little link. And then, I mean, you have to have Discord, but that's how we're going to be doing our group chat on the Discord. So thanks, guys. So many of you guys responded.
So we have, you know, through this, we've had, you know, almost 25 students at one time or another. And I know we have another one tonight at 7. And I know that some people, like, you know, have a job and can't be here right now. But you know, generally the people that show up to like the voluntary things, like the optional meeting we're having right now, are usually good people to connect with, because they tend to be pretty serious and have the time, or at least made the time. So you know, look through stuff. If there's no more questions, I'll just go ahead and end it for now. You're welcome to pop back in at 7. We're gonna do the exact same thing. I'll probably try to cover most of the stuff we covered here today, and again, I'll try to record that one and post it too. But I don't expect it to be much different. Again, you all should know how to get a hold of me by email, and you know, we'll just, you know, go there. So last chance. All right, so my last parting thought is go look at, hey, what should I be doing? And get started if you have time. You don't want to get behind the first week, and there's a lot of stuff to do. Most of it doesn't take a huge amount of time, except for watching those videos. You know, you've got, you know, 2 hours worth of lab videos plus 2 other videos that are probably an hour and a half. So you've got 4.5 hours of videos to watch this week on lab, and then another probably 3 hours of lecture. So, and that's not all the other stuff you have to do. So we're pretty busy from, you know, the start.
Can I ask you the last question about the lab, the 8.2b?
Uh-huh.
It's about the effective of the metabolism exercise on the rates of the carbon dioxide.
Uh-huh.
So the buffer, my understanding is the NaOH, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
No, so
so
wait.
when
So what you're asking about, the hyperventilation or the exercise one? The exercise one, right?
yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
in that one, we're not using a buffer, right? We're using a base. Don't confuse buffer with a base. And it doesn't matter what buffer we're using, but the NaOH is a base. So putting taking water, which should have a pH pretty close to 7, right, neutral, and putting NaOH in it, that's sodium hydroxide, that's a base. And what the base will do is it'll increase the pH of the water. And so we're not using a buffer. If you used a buffer, then when you blew through the straw to acidify it, it wouldn't acidify because the buffer would resist the pH changes.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So we in the sorry, for those of you that haven't looked yet that far ahead, in 8.4, it's about acids and bases. And in the first part, we take water and then put acid in it and watch the pH drop a lot, or put base in it and watch the pH go up a lot. And then we take a buffer, which resists changes in pH, put acid in it, and the pH goes down, but not nearly as much, and then put base in it, and initially the pH goes up, but not nearly as much, and then it goes up a lot. So that's an interesting finding that, you know, we talk about in that video. But in B, then you're going to do kind of a similar thing. You're going to take a really weak base, a very, you know, dilute NaOH, put it in the water, and then what you're going to do is you're going to blow through a straw. And when you blow through a straw, you're exhaling CO2. And when CO2 hits the water, it turns into something called carbonic acid. And carbonic acid dissociates into H plus and bicarbonate, HCO3 minus. The H plus, now that it's free, actually lowers the pH. Matter of fact, pH is a measure of the concentration of H plus on a log scale. It's actually 1 over that. But so the more hydrogen ion we have in a solution, the more the pH drops. So as the person blows through the straw, the pH drops, and eventually the indicator, phenolphthalein, which is pink in a basic solution, turns clear because it neutralizes it. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
because all hydrogens, the hydrogens blows into I mean, not hydrogen blows. Actually, the carbon dioxide acts with the water, so create the hydrogen ions from the carbonic acids.
Yes.
So when the hydrogen concentration is higher, that means the colorless turns to colorless. The time is faster.
Yes. Yeah. So when you exercise, right, you increase your metabolism, and therefore, because you have a higher metabolism, you use more oxygen and make more CO2. So after you exercise, you should have more CO2, and that should make the acid faster, so it should change faster. That's what the expectation.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I see. So the base and the buffer is different. So the NaOH is actually as a base to act it to make the water more base. So and then we can
Yes.
see the change of the color.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right then. We're good then. So thanks for coming. I'm going to end it, and we'll see you later.